And then one night, I'm falling asleep and I hear my inner awareness, much like I would in a lucid dream, but it was just as I was falling asleep. And my inner awareness told me that if I really wanted to go the whole distance, I might cease to be. And I think it literally was telling me, that fundamentally, you, the ego waking self you, has to kind of disappear and kind of die. And I told my inner awareness, I said, look,
Today, we have a very different conversation on the mind, psychology, and consciousness. We are going to be exploring lucid dreaming and the awareness behind the dream. So, I could not imagine a better person to have this conversation with than Robert Waggoner. You are one of the most respected voices in lucid dreaming and one of the most experienced practitioners there are now. So, great and welcome. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation with you.
thanks for having me.
Yes. And before we go jump off the deep end of lucid dreaming, we can just have a very quick stop on what is lucid dreaming. And also, I would be interesting to hear your experiences in the beginning of your practice. As I understood, lucid dreaming wasn't that widely recognized yet when you started your practice. So mainly, how did people relate to you and your practice at this time?
Right. So, for people out there listening, lucid dreaming means that you realize within a dream that you're dreaming. You literally know, hey, this is a dream.
Mm.
And the very first time it happened to me, I was probably 10 or 11 years old. I was in the public library looking at books, and suddenly I see a little baby Tyrannosaurus Rex dinosaur walking through the book stacks. And as I watched it, I thought, wait a second, aren't dinosaurs extinct? How can this be? And then it occurred to me, oh, I must be dreaming. And I told myself, well, if this is a dream, then I can wake up. And I told myself to wake up, and I woke up. And
Oh.
so that was the very first time it occurred. But at 10 years old, you don't realize that there's any potential for anything greater here. So it was much later, it was about 7 years later. I was in high school and I was reading a book. And in the book, the shamanic teacher told his person how to become aware in dreams by finding his hands in the dream state. And it didn't really make sense. And so I just created my own technique on how to become consciously aware in a dream uh, at in 1975, if you can imagine that, 50 years ago, when I was in high school. And within 3 days, I had my very first lucid dream and just been exploring it ever since. Then the interesting thing was that the scientific evidence came out in 1980. So I had 5 years by myself, learning lucid dreaming, learning the rules, learning the principles of the dream state, which are very important to understand, and how it all went together. But I was so happy when the scientific evidence came out around 1980, 81, because now I could talk to people about it without them rolling their eyes or telling me I was having a dream about dreaming, and because you couldn't be consciously aware in the dream state. So lucid dreaming since that time, lots of scientific research and lots of
Mhm.
incredible examples of the potential of lucid dreaming.
Yes, and now is the good time to have conversations on the awareness behind the lucid dream, also when we're getting a bit more background on the lucid dreaming and perhaps people are becoming a bit more familiar with it. So, to what extent is the lucid dream like an expression of ourself, and to what extent can it be something else we are interacting with through the
Right.
self? Have you thought about this? Maybe we can start exploring this note.
Right. Yeah. So first, I have to kind of overcome a myth that a lot of people have about lucid
Oh,
dreaming. So a lot of people talk about lucid dreaming as it means that, oh, you become aware in the dream and then you control everything.
yeah.
And I really want people to understand that you don't control everything. So for example, let's say I become lucidly aware and I fly through this wall, and on the other side is a big castle and a white horse. Who created the big castle and the white horse? I
Mhm.
didn't. I just flew through the wall. And so what
Mm,
you have to realize that in a lucid dream, you don't control everything, that the
mm,
unconscious mind is still sending images and symbolism and things. And so lucid dreaming should be thought of as being consciously aware within the dream and then relating to the unconscious mind or your larger awareness with greater awareness. Now you
mm,
relate to it and you go, oh, wait a second. Where did that come from? What does that have to do with me? What am I being shown here, if anything? So that's the very first thing that we have to understand about lucid dreaming is that it doesn't mean control. It means greater awareness to relate to the contents of your unconscious mind. So what happened to me in my story was that I taught myself how to lucid dream in 1975. The scientific evidence came out in 1980, 81. And then in 1983, um, there was a Lucid Dream Explorers group that had a monthly goal to achieve every month. And so I joined this little group of probably 30 or 40 people. And every month we'd have a goal to achieve in our lucid dreams. And so one month it was find out what the dream figures in your lucid dream represent.
mm,
And so I thought, "Ah, that's easy. I can do that. I've interacted with lucid dream figures before in lucid dreams, and so this isn't a big deal." So that week, I was out in Chicago on a business trip. I remembered that I had to do this for the monthly goal. I fell asleep. I followed a woman into an office and I became lucidly aware that, oh, yeah, this is a dream. I'm dreaming this. Then I remembered, oh, yeah, the goal is find out what the dream figures represent. So
mm,
now I see three women there, and there's one gentleman in a three-piece suit, elderly gentleman. And I walk up to him and I ask him, excuse me, what do you represent? And instead of the dream figure responding, suddenly a voice from above him boomed out a partial response. And I thought about what I heard, and I just looked up and repeated what I'd heard and said, what? And then it's like the voice, the invisible voice, had to think about it, and then it boomed out the entire message about what this dream figure represented. And so I thought, okay, I've accomplished my goal and found out what this dream figure represents. And so I'm going to wake up and write this all down before I forget. But the next day when I woke up, I thought, why didn't the dream figure tell me?
mm.
Why did this non-visible voice respond, explaining what this dream figure represented? So I began to wonder, is there an awareness behind the dream?
Mm,
Is can you interact with your unconscious mind or your however you want to think about it, your inner awareness, your larger self, however you want to think about it. Could you do that in a lucid dream? And
mm,
so after that, I began to explore this. And sometimes I would ask to experience a concept. Sometimes I would ask to learn something that you shouldn't be able to know under normal circumstances. And so that's why, as I interacted more and more with this awareness behind the dream, I realized that there's something here.
mm.
In lucid dreaming, we can basically engage our larger awareness directly.
Yes, and there were many points that came out here, and I'm listening, and there were like several things I want to hang on to. Like, firstly, as you said when you in the beginning, that when we're thinking about the dream visuals and all these things appearing and reappearing, it's impossible for our waking life self to be the creator of those. Like, you could tell me, like, okay, draw me a dream now, and I will like take my time to draw a very childish, very simple portrait of a dream and give it to you. But when we are in the lucid dream, things are changing fast. And when we are practicing the skill, yes, we can start to ask questions. And in that sense, we have some control over maybe perhaps where the dream goes, in the sense that we set an intention. However, it is not necessarily so that the answers we are getting from the dream is something that we expect to get. Like that, you said there's knowledge that can be offered to us that we should not know about something, about future events, for instance. Or, of course, you can find out things about other people, of course, always get their consent before doing that. But still, it seems that there is an awareness outside the self awareness that we are when we are awake. So, a larger awareness, as you say. And basically, it's interesting how these two awarenesses or layers of our awareness are interacting with each other. Because you said about this that the dream answers to you. You ask the dream figure, but the dream answers to you. And to me, that has happened quite a few times. I read one of your books, the portal to the inner self, that one, and that where you said that, ask the dream, don't ask the dream figures like your questions, ask the dream. And then I asked the dreams, but they didn't necessarily respond to me like verbally. We would be
Right.
having this conversation, or if I would ask the dream figure, they would usually talk to me, or I would imagine them talking to me in the dream. But the dream itself behind the figures, it responds to really massive great visualizations, demonstrations, which I couldn't have imagined, like the limits of my mind. But also what has been happening is that it responds through this certain frequency, a tone. It's hard to kind of, I cannot like repeat it. It's like a very low murmur, like a very vibrational tone. Sometimes it brings me to a place and there's just this tone there. And I don't know what it means, but it feels very soothing. So I don't know if this is something that has happened to you with the tone.
Right. You brought up some interesting aspects. As I went deeper into interacting with the awareness behind the dream,
Mm,
again, just to make it clear to everyone, you ignore the dream figures, you ignore the
yeah,
dream setting, and you
uh,
just ask a question. Like a very simple question might be, "Hey, dream, show me something important for me to see,
mm,
or show me something important for me to understand." Or, "Hey, dream, show me something hilarious," and then something just outrageously comical normally appears. So when you ask for "show me," oftentimes the dream, the unconscious mind, will respond with a visual representation,
yes,
visual symbols and all. And sometimes the beauty and complexity of them are such that you realize that I, Robert, am not creating that, or you,
mhm,
Ruth, are not creating that. That is at a different layer of the self is creating it.
mhm,
So that's the first thing to understand. Sometimes, though, the way we phrase things results in the response. So we ask, "Show me," then we see. Uh, if you ask, "Tell me," then oftentimes you'll hear a non-visible auditory voice explain. But you're right. Sometimes some strange things happen that you would not have guessed, like hearing a tone or suddenly being sent to a whole different space where now you're having a surprising, strange experience that you
mm,
never would have imagined. So again, all of this seems to show that you're interacting with a different layer of the self.
yeah,
But sometimes when the response comes symbolically, it's actually quite funny. So I'll give
mhm,
you an example. Um, this is something I was just playing around with. So my wife and I have been married for a long time, for 40 some years. Anyway, about 15 years ago, I knew her birthday was coming up, and so I began to think, boy, what was she like for her birthday? And I've already given tons of earrings and all sorts of things, and I'm running out of ideas here. So that night, I became lucidly aware, and I announced, "Dream, show me what my wife would like for her upcoming birthday." And suddenly, in the dream space, appears a teddy bear, a little fuzzy bear. And I'm thinking, what? My wife wants a teddy bear? We've been married 25 years and she's never talked about teddy bears. We don't have any teddy bears. A teddy bear? But that's the information that my dream awareness gave me, that's what she wanted. And so in the morning, I thought, boy, this is really strange. So when she came down to the breakfast table, I said, hey, Wendy, your birthday's coming along here in a couple of weeks. Do you think you'd like something like a teddy bear for your birthday? And she gave me the look like, you have totally lost it. There's no way that I want a teddy bear. And then suddenly it hit me that here in the United States, a teddy bear also has a different meaning. Like if a woman told her girlfriends, "Oh, my husband's a teddy bear," then they would all understand that he was warm and
Mm,
loving and cuddly and really interested in their emotions and how they
mm.
were feeling that day and really wanted, just to be there for him. And that's when I realized, oh, that's what my wife wants. She wants a teddy bear husband a vibe coming from me and all. So again, sometimes it was really insightful, a teddy bear, but I didn't understand if it was symbolic or literal or what. And so that's why sometimes when you interact with the larger awareness, you have to realize that some answers are not totally literal. Some
Mm.
are going off in a different direction. They're symbolic.
Definitely. It's good you asked her though that you didn't get her the
Yeah,
teddy
right.
teddy bear like for her birthday. Yes, but definitely I agree to that, that the answers are very seldomly like straightforward or very literal, like the dream does not tell you what you should do, like in a very literal sense. And I feel that quite often it's a bit of a riddle. Also, sometimes I ask the dream figures answers to questions and they may respond with a riddle, which is funny, but also, yeah, there have been a lot of symbols, like a lot of symbols that I have received asking and for answers, or that my friend asked to ask for him, and I did receive the answer as symbols, and I still have no idea what those symbols mean. So
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
lot of symbolism, a lot of like illustration, and then this certain frequency tone that seems to appear. And interestingly, it always appears alongside investigating the self. That I just get
Oh,
this
interesting.
frequency.
Interesting.
Frequency. Mm.
Right, right. So I do want to say that everybody is going to have their own unique experience.
Mhm.
Sometimes the inner awareness is very direct and straightforward. For example, um, I received an email after my first book was published a few years later, and it was from a young guy who told me that he's a recovered methamphetamine addict.
Uh,
So he went to drug rehab after he was arrested by the police as a
uh,
teenager. That didn't work. A few years later, the police caught him again, and he was dealing in methamphetamine, and they put him in a drug rehab program. He said he was so bored that one day he was at his drug counselor session and he saw his counselor had my first book sitting on his desk, and he asked to borrow it because he just wanted to read something because he was so bored. Anyway, he became a good lucid dreamer. He had already had some lucid dreams, so he knew what it was about. And he got very captivated by this idea of ignoring the dream figures and just asking the dream, questions. And
uh,
so he and his inner awareness, and lucid dreams began to get related and all. And he said, after about 6 months or whatever, or 3 months or something, in one lucid dream, his inner awareness asked him, would you like to see what your life is going to be like if you continue to use drugs? And he said, sure, show me. And he said for the next 10 minutes, it was like a video of all the people he would hurt, all the
uh,
damage he'd do to his body, all the trouble he'd cause in society. And he said at the conclusion of seeing this in a lucid dream, he decided to go cold turkey to stop using drugs. And he was writing me after he graduated from a 2-year college course because he knew that he would have to be clean. He'd have to be free of drugs for 2 years to accomplish this and
uh.
and all. But he shared with me some of his conversations with his inner awareness, and they were very direct and straightforward.
Mm,
And he asked me if this was unusual. And, it seemed a little bit unusual
mm,
because I don't know if he just needed so much help at that moment that he was just getting it directly before he totally destroyed his life. I don't know if he had done so much drugs that he had blown open the doorways and the communication was just that direct on. But it's going to be unique and special for each person. Some people will hear, some people will see, some people will hear and see,
mm.
some people will, um, approach it how they do. So,
Sure. And as we are exploring these layers of self and awareness, in some way, the architecture of self, I do feel that lucid dreaming, it does provide us a certain guide for ourselves, that it's not necessarily that it gives us literal like right and wrong answers, or so. It's not a judge, but it is a guide. So I do feel that in the example you just told, maybe it gave the direct answers because that's what the person really needed. That if it would have given him like these symbols and just
right,
kind of riddles, it probably would not have produced the results that it did.
right,
So maybe our inner guide is guiding us in the sense that we need to be guiding, in which case we are thinking about like two sets of awareness interacting with each other, even though the wake life self may not always be like understanding on that interaction, but it's
right.
happening unconsciously.
So you made a great point, and one that I always try to get across in my workshops and interactions with others is that when I've engaged the inner awareness, when I've seen the reports of my lucid dreaming friends engaging the inner awareness, it almost always acts like a caring teacher, an
Yes.
educator. It's sometimes it presents the test to you, like in the example of the gentleman who had methamphetamine addiction, the meth addict. It did not tell him stop doing this.
Oh.
It said, "Hey, you want to see what things are going to be like?" And he decided on his own, "Oh, if that's what it's going to be like, wow, I should really make some changes."
Mm,
So it's more like an educator that provides answers, that sometimes even test us a little bit. Sometimes with kind of asking us to expand our mind a little bit and all. So I just want people to understand it from that
mm,
way, because occasionally I'll meet people who think of the inner awareness as a magic genie who's
mm.
going to make everything perfect, and they just rub the lamp and things will happen. It's more complex than that. It's more about your own growth and development as a person, as a being. And so that's what I see when I interact with the inner awareness.
Sure, yes. And I do think it takes a lot of practice with the self before you can get to start practicing the lucid dreaming. Like, for instance, this sense of being able to detach emotions from the self, in the sense that in the lucid dream, if we're having very strong emotional reactions to the dream, we're going to wake up, in which case the dream will end and we're not going to get to practice very long. So I do feel that the more intense lucid dreaming period for me that started about 2 3 years ago. Before that, I had a period that I was doing meditations every day for 1 or 2 years to get this kind of emotional calm, not to like like depress emotions. That's never probably a good thing to do, but instead to be able to at some points just detach this emotional life from the self, to create an empty space in between, so you're able to be the observer of your life and not get too emotionally involved in different situations. And I feel that this is a really important skill to have in lucid dreaming also, that you are the observer and you don't need to be analytical in the dream, that you don't need to know everything at that point when it happens, what it means, or does it make sense, but also not to get scared or not to get too excited. So in this sense, we're actually opening space. Perhaps that's what we're doing. We're opening space for a certain sense of awareness to rise, which again, the dream awareness can interact with. Maybe that's how it goes somehow.
Right. So for almost all lucid dreamers around the world, one of their first challenges that they discover is that if you get too excited,
Mm,
you'll probably wake up.
mm,
And so almost every lucid dreamer learns that when you become lucidly aware, you you can have some emotion, but if you go way too extreme, like you're way too excited, way too happy, way too thrilled, you'll pop out. And so you begin to see that the emotions have their place, and it's not to deny emotions or to try to achieve some neutral state or whatever. It's just to not let yourself go excessive. If you go
mm,
excessive, then you've lost. So that's kind of probably the first thing that you have to learn as a lucid dreamer. Um, a lot of people learn to lucid dream without ever having any meditation practice,
mm,
without any special skills of any kind, when it comes. But what lucid dreaming helps us to see is how the mind works,
mm,
and that was one of the important things for me when I taught myself how to lucid dream in 1975, because there really wasn't very much information out there from any credible source about how to go about things. And what I learned very quickly is that your beliefs and expectations matter.
mm,
So if you believe and expect that you can easily fly through that wall, you can fly right through it and go on your lucid dream adventure. But if you go flying up to that wall and expect trouble, or think it's going to be hard, then you'll bounce off the dream wall. You'll get stuck halfway through. It'll reflect your own beliefs and expectations back to you. And
mm.
so a lot of times people will write me, I started lucid dreaming and I'm having this issue. I can only fly 6 feet high. And I read about other lucid dreamers who can, fly, hundreds of feet or thousands of feet. Why can I only fly 6 feet high? And basically, they begin to adopt a belief or an expectation that that's their limit, because oftentimes it's connected to their emotions, that that's where they feel safe. If I
Mm,
fall
mm,
from 6 feet, oh, I won't get hurt. But if I'm 200 feet above the ground and fall, then that'll be a dangerous thing. And so they don't allow themselves. But that's why I'm saying in the lucid dream, not only are we relating to our unconscious mind, but
mm.
we're also relating to our own beliefs and expectation, our own intent. And so it's in many ways a beautiful way to kind of begin to see what your beliefs and expectations are, what your emotional sense is, what your intent is, where your mental energy is at. And it kind of gives you an education in all of that.
Sure. And then also about beliefs, it can be a really good way to uncover underlying beliefs also, in the sense that many of the beliefs we have actually been formed through our childhood, that people may not have a direct memory access to those experiences, but for some reason they have held a belief or acted a certain way throughout their entire lives. When you ask, like, okay, where did it begin, they can't remember, so they respond, well, I've always just been this way. Like, okay, but in many cases it can be something that was not even directly taught to us, but something we internalized as a child in order to adapt into our environment that we were in that instance, and we thought that that's how, like, that's how we should be in our life. And then we forget about it, but we keep acting the same way through adulthood. So at least in my case, when I've been practicing lucid dreaming, I suddenly realized, like, certain things, like for instance why I was always incredibly anxious talking to the camera or talking in front of people. Like, I would have literal panic symptoms, like I would be sweating and my heart would be beating, and like I would just be all over the place with my words. And the lucid dreaming like taught me, this is what it's about. So it
Right, right.
uncovered a belief very, very deep down. And then after that, I've been more calm at least. So it can be a very good, it's not like magic, but it can be an incredibly good tool and skill to obtain, to learn things about yourself actually rather fast. I am a great supporter of going to therapy and all these things. Um, it's very supportive for individuals, but also I do feel that in some other instances, when we are uncovering our beliefs or want to understand more about ourselves, the changes can happen in lucid dreaming quite fast because it just can be something inner thing that's like shown to you, like here it is. You get to the roots.
Right, right. You know what? One great thing. So lucid dreaming has been used by psychologists around the
Mm,
world to help people who have recurring nightmares,
mm,
oftentimes from PTSD, and so they teach them to become consciously aware. And sometimes all you have to do is change one thing in that recurring dream, that recurring nightmare. Lucidly aware, just change one thing, and then the nightmares basically cease.
yeah.
And so that's been a wonderful thing. But lucid dreamers have also seen on their own, like you were mentioning, that you can use lucid dreaming to really make changes very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
For example, there was a woman who wrote to me. She had read my first book, and she, in waking life, had a fear of flying.
Mm,
She was afraid to get on airplanes and just had kind of a phobia about that. And so she wanted to come to a dream conference that I was going to be at, and she asked me, could she use lucid dreaming to overcome her fear of flying? And what I suggested to her was much like a psychologist might to someone who had a fear of snakes or whatever. I, I suggested to her, each time you become lucidly aware, go to the lucid dream airport. And if you feel okay, get on the lucid dream airplane. And if you still feel okay, let the lucid dream airplane take off and see what that experience is like. And so she told me she did that 5 times in her lucid dreams, in 5 different lucid dreams. In one lucid dream, she even announced, I love airports, I love airplanes, just to kind of fill her mind with this idea that it wasn't a scary place, that it was a great thing. And so
mm.
after 5 lucid dreams, she wrote me and she said, you know what? Now I don't have any anxiety about flying in planes. So I've gone ahead and booked a ticket to come to the dream conference, and I booked a window seat because I wanted to see if taking off in the lucid dream was like it was in actual physical reality. And she flew to the conference, didn't have any problem, and she's been flying ever since. So you can begin to see how you can use this inner mental realm as kind of a way to deal with fears and concerns, limitations, and all that kind of thing. And you can use it to kind of emotionally heal and even sometimes physically heal.
Yes. Yes, this is so interesting. But now let's go to the next subject. We've been talking about the lucid dreaming and it's the dreamlike environment, the opportunities, dream figures, self-awareness, all these things. Now, I would like to stop and investigate a bit these different lucid dreaming experiences, the light of awareness and then the void experience. So a sense of dreamless sleep in the between the lucid dreams or in the lucid dreams, lacking physicality. So, as I understood, you have had some experiences with the light of awareness. Would you like to tell a bit more on those?
Right. So lucid dreaming is a long path,
Mm,
especially if you're going to explore it deeply. It just keeps showing more and more and more. And along the way, it also encourages you to let go of fears, to resolve fears. Don't run away from them, don't hide from them, but you have to face the fears directly in the lucid dream, knowing it as a dream reflection of a fear, and then come to terms with it and resolve it. So what happened to me was something a little bit strange. I grew up in the very middle of America. Um, Never read anything about Buddhism very
mm,
much because of the translation issues and all, and it was just kind of a foreign idea. But what happened to me is 20 years into lucid dreaming, um, I began to see that a dream was a mental creation. A
Mhm.
dream is a creation of the mind, and it reflects our mental energies, our concerns, our fears, our desires, our intents. All that's reflected in a dream. It's a mental creation. And then I began to see, well, gosh, a lucid dream is also a mental creation. It's a creation of the conscious self and the unconscious self, or your inner awareness. Also, again, dealing with beliefs, expectations, focus, intent, emotions, all that. And then what happened is I began to see that in many respects, my personal waking experience is a mental creation too.
Mm.
If I'm a person who has lots of fear, then I avoid things. If I'm a person who's very gregarious and loving, I interact with others and all that. So what my inner thinking is, what my inner beliefs and expectation is basically being expressed in the outer world. It's
Mm.
also, in many respects, a mental creation. So, thinking about all that, I began to wonder, is there then a real reality? Is
Mhm.
there a reality that isn't influenced by my thinking, my beliefs, my expectations, my emotions, my viewpoint, my interpretation? And how would you get to a real reality? And suddenly, as I'd fall asleep, I would find nothing but blue light. The entire night was blue light. And really, I remember the first night it happened. I woke up and I thought, what do I put in my dream journal? Blue light? I mean, there was no me, no action, no symbols, no anything, just this expansive blue light. And this began to occur, every week or so, I would have a night of nothing but blue light. And I remember one morning I came down to the breakfast table and my wife was there, and she looked at me very seriously and said, Robert, what's happening to you? And I said, what do you mean what's happening to me? And she said, last night I woke up and looked at your face and I've never seen someone in such bliss before. What is happening to you? And 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 like you, I started to laugh and I said, well, I'm actually trying to understand the actual nature of reality, and I'm having some pretty strange experiences. That's I just left it there. But as things went on, there were some more lucid dreams that were very informative. And then one night, I'm falling asleep and I hear my inner awareness, much like I would in a lucid dream, but it was just as I was falling asleep. And my inner awareness told me that if I really wanted to go the whole distance, I might cease to be. And I think it literally was telling me, that fundamentally, you, the ego, waking self, you has to kind of disappear and kind of die. And I told my inner awareness, I said, look, I understand that I'm just a small bit in a much larger awareness. I'd interacted with the inner awareness so much that I knew its creativity, was 1,000 times my creativity, and its knowing was 1,000 times my knowing. So I told my inner self, I agree to cease to be. Otherwise, this life will be continue to be a giant kind of mystery, tragic comedy. Anyway, so that night, if you can imagine this, imagine light as awareness. And the light of awareness is aware within the vast light of awareness. And there you are, aware light, maintaining its awareness, aware. And this experience went on for a while, then boom, it stopped. And
Mhm.
now there's a gentleman in a robe standing there. And I looked at him and I said, what was that? Was that a lucid dream? And he goes, oh no, to enter a lucid dream, go here. And I step into that space and now I'm going through a tunnel of light and I pop into a lucid dream, consciously aware. But in the morning, I thought, what was that first experience that, you know, this aware light in awareness? And I'll tell you what I could liken it to at that moment. At that moment, I thought it was like a voluntary near-death experience.
Mm,
Oftentimes in near-death experience, people say, "Oh, my body's dying," and all of a sudden there's this brilliant light. Well, it was like I agreed to surpass all that and just go directly into the light. But once you kind of are in the light, the sense of self disappears, your beliefs, expectations, your focus and intent, and there's the light. So so I thought, wow, that was such a bizarre experience, and that was really interesting. It's probably 3 years later. I was at an International Association for the Study of Dreams conference, and there was a speaker there, Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, who had just written the Tibetan Yogas of Dream and Sleep, a new book he had written. And in his book, he says and he was up there giving a talk. I'd never read his book. He stood up there and said, "Oh, and the ultimate goal of Buddhist dream yoga is the clear light of awareness by awareness itself, but, achieving the state." And I thought, oh my God, there's a name for this.
mm,
This is a practice. And it was really interesting to read about the Buddhist ideas on this. But in my own crazy way, I had kind of what we'd call in the States bushwhacked. I bushwhacked my way. I didn't follow the traditional
mm,
Buddhist dream yoga path. I just kind of learned the lessons through my own mucking around and
mm.
exploring and going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And so it was really an interesting thing. But that's what they call the light of awareness. Now, you can also get a sense of this in another way. Um, and that's by, in a lucid dream, stopping what you're doing and meditating in a lucid dream by emptying your mind,
Yeah.
by letting go of all thoughts, beliefs, emotions, intents, whatever, just let it all go. And the first time I meditated in a lucid dream, that's what I did. I just let go of all thoughts. And suddenly it was like someone was ripping the dream canvas and this brilliant white light was coming through it. I didn't understand what the brilliant white light was. I thought I was doing something wrong, and I kind of shook myself out of it and closed my eyes and started emptying my mind and had an incredible experience of transcendence. But Buddhist Dzogchen practitioner told me that in their practice, they try to meditate in lucid dreams, so they experience the light, which they call Rigpa, the base
Mm.
awareness that's behind everything. So that would be another simpler approach to kind of practice it. He said he was surprised that anyone achieved that in their first attempt. But anyway, I just do things on my own, just because my inner intent was really to understand things.
Sure, and you had a very strong inner intent because, as you said, you were like had practiced 20 years, and then you were starting to explore the reality and what is reality. Is there a base reality for all reality? And I think that intent basically was carried with you all the time to the lucid dreams. So in that sense, it does make sense with this inner guide to show you that light of awareness, and that is so interesting. I was just thinking about the man there you met and said that, oh no, to enter a lucid dream, go this way. That, okay, but what if you would have just gone the other way again? Like, what would have happened then?
Yeah, it was a really interesting experience.
Yeah.
So anyway, but that's what happened. But it took me 20 years to kind of get to this level of understanding.
Mm,
Now I want to mention something that we have just barely touched upon, which is fear and emotions. So
mm,
sometimes in lucid dreams, we talked about interacting with the awareness behind the dream.
mm,
So like what one time I asked, "Hey dream, let me experience the energy of the universe." And it's
mm,
like the dream cracked open and this brilliant white light is just flooding me, just hitting me like a torrent of energy. And
mm,
after about a minute of it, I couldn't take it anymore. So I said, "Stop, time out, stop." So so what I want to say is as you go deeper into lucid dreams, you begin to have some really powerful experiences.
mm,
But if you have fear,
Mm,
you'll retreat.
sure.
You'll try to stay in your comfort zone. You'll try not to explore outside of the bounds of normality or whatever you think is proper. But if you're going to grow, you have to begin to accept some strange experiences and just go with them. And
Sure.
in fact, as I was going deeper into my lucid dreams, sometimes I'd hear a voice behind me, or I'd see a banner in the sky that said, "Trust, nothing to fear."
Mhm.
And so that's something that you learn as you go along. Because again, if things are too unusual, sometimes we shut it down. We go, "Oh, this is
Mhm.
too weird. Boom, I'm out of here."
Yes.
But
Yes.
if you're willing to go along with it and to see what might happen, then you're going to have a much more profound understanding and experience.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And also with the banners, I've had them, but as like newsstands with like news magazines, just saying that, you can't get stuck here, keep moving, it's okay, you're safe, and so forward. But to this experience, the light of awareness, and then to another perhaps unusual experience in the lucid dream, I would refer to the void experience. And interestingly, I've read some articles on top of my own practice and hearing experiences of others. And in some publications, it seems that the light of awareness and the void experience are kind of described as the same state. However, I do feel that experientially they are very different because you experience this light of awareness as you described it. Now, I think I've ended up in the void three times, or three times at least, so that I can clearly remember it. And it was a very different experience. And the first time, it was in the very beginning of my own like lucid dreaming training. Surely I've lucid dreamed since childhood, but the first time when I was intentionally lucid dreaming. So in the beginning of that, and basically what happened was that I felt that the dream was there was like actually an out of body experience within the lucid dream. That happened first. And then from that, something just happened. And suddenly I was floating in like, it was kind of like floating in space, except there were no stars. So it was just black, no light anywhere, no body, no physicality, no self. I lost all memories of the self. So there was just like, some form of awareness and then some form of panic because it was completely black. And as I had lucid dreamed, I gotten used to that I could wake up when I want to wake up intentionally. But now that I ended up in this vibrant blackness, there was no more connection with my physical body neither. So I could not wake up. Of course, you eventually wake up. Just for the listeners, you can't get trapped in there, but the sensation was strong. And we have this time expansion in dreams that some minutes in waking life can feel a very long time in the lucid dream, I suppose. So yes, and that was a very disturbing experience. That was not like a blissful experience. And when I woke up, I was just in pure horror. Like, what was that? Like, finally, I got out. And then I started reading a bit on it and I found the void. Like, okay, it seems like an actual setting, like you said, that it has a name and it's something that um like meditators even work towards. So after this, I've been there another two times, but it wasn't scary anymore. It was just floating in blackness with nothing there. And then to the light of awareness, I don't think I have had that experience except 3 nights ago. I think I was, of course, thinking about this conversation coming up and these themes. And I was like, I don't think I've experienced the light of awareness. And then I go lucid. In the lucid dream, I ask the dream, like, like something about you give me the light of awareness right in the lucid dream. And then this happens. It was again a bit different, like white light, yes, but it didn't stay white. It started to have different bright shapes, but there was a grid, a see-through grid there, and nothing else. And I was floating. There was nobody. And again, the sound, this very uh, kind of low murmuring sound there was present. and but that was blissful. That was definitely blissful. It probably was not, I must say, the same light of awareness. It was more my own intent of wanting to experience it, and kind of my idea, which I carried with, of what it could be like. However, on the note of these unusual experiences, here are some examples also. How would you see the void experience and light of awareness? Like, do you feel that they are connected, the same, or something perhaps different?
Yeah, like you say, sometimes people say they're the same. I don't believe that. I feel
Mm,
like they're fundamentally different.
yeah.
Um, so so in the void experience, for people who haven't had it, so imagine you're in a lucid dream and you're exploring and doing whatever, you know it's a dream, and then suddenly sometimes all the visuals stop
Mm,
and you find yourself basically floating in sometimes it's kind of a sparkling blackness, sometimes it's just kind of a black field, just an empty field. So a lot of people at that moment, when they find that the visuals have ended and they're in this sparkling blackness or blackness, sometimes a lot of them just tell themselves to wake up. That they
mm,
think that, okay, that's it, that's the end of what there was. So just wake up, and oftentimes they wake up at that moment. But what myself and others have learned, you can maintain your awareness in the void, in the emptiness.
mm,
And but you have to maintain your awareness. So like one of my friends will kind of sing, another will, even though he can't see a body or whatever, he'll imagine that he's grabbing his wrist. And so he can kind of maintain this sensation of being in awareness and this kind of emptiness. And oftentimes, and this was one thing that really surprised me, one time I hung out in the void for a long, long time.
mm,
And then all of a sudden, a dream started up. I saw the very beginning moments of a dream. So
mm,
a bush happens over there, a tree happens over there. Oh, there's a car. Oh, now pops up a house. And it was like the dream imagery. And this is an interesting thing. We know that in most dreams, we have rapid eye movement. Well,
mm,
guess what was happening as I watched the birth of a dream? I looked this way. Oh, the bush. Oh, then I looked that way. Oh, the tree. Then I looked this way. Oh, the house. Then I looked this
mm.
way. Oh, and I started to realize, oh, that's what rapid eye movement is about this imagery that begins to appear on your inner dream screen or your inner sense screen. So anyway, so you can pop out of uh, pop out of the void into a new lucid dream, and you can watch the very birth of a lucid dream. Um, now, one thing about the void and why I say it's not like the clear light of awareness, in the void, normally there's you relating to the blackness, to the sparklingness, to the whatever.
Mm,
There's still a sense of you. Even though you might not see a body, your body is not you. Your awareness, basically is the sense of you. In the awareness experience of the clear light awareness, it's simply awareness experiencing the vastness of awareness. So
uh-huh.
there's no Robert, there's no, oh, I want to do this. Oh, this is lasting a long time. When do I pop out of this? There's none of that. There's none of that kind of mentation. It's just awareness within awareness. And so that's what the Buddhists would call a non-dual state. There's no
Mm,
subject object relating. It's all just the oneness. It's the oneness of awareness. So so that's why they're fundamentally distinct. The void is fundamentally distinct. So what does it mean? Why do we have the void, and why do people around the world, lucid dreamers around the world, mention it? You know, sometimes I think maybe this shows us what the end of the dream state is like. The
mm,
dream state ends, the visuals end, but yet awareness continues.
mm,
And here we are, and then, oh, here comes another dream. And suddenly we're watching and we maintain our lucidly aware. Sometimes that's what it is. Sometimes, though, it's a little bit different. Sometimes in the void state, interesting things will happen. Like you might start falling, and
Mm,
you have this sense of falling and falling and falling and falling and falling. I remember one time I was falling and falling and falling and falling in the void state, in the blackness. But I just realized lucid dreams are unusual, and so I'm just going to go and wait to see what happens. And at the very end, what happened? I began to see this light, and then as I looked at it, it was the face of a dragon. That was a blue-green dragon made out of light, and it turned towards me and looked at me, and I thought, blue-green dragon of light. And the strange thing was, it wasn't a Western dragon, it was an Eastern dragon, like
mm,
you'd see drawn in Chinese, that kind of thing. And I woke up and I thought, blue green dragon, what's that all about? So I Google searched blue green dragon, and in Chinese viewpoint, there's a dragon for each direction, and the springtime dragon is blue green, just like this dragon that I saw. So it's really interesting. Why did I see that? I don't know exactly, but obviously, sometimes some of these things you see are very deep, and it's almost like you get to a layer of the myth behind the world myths or something. I
mm.
don't know. I don't know.
Sure, sure. Yes. Thank you. Those were very interesting points. And also on the clarification between the void and the light of awareness, because like I earlier said, I agree with you that it does not seem experientially like the same experience. It seems like two very different ones. They have
Right.
some things in common, like the lack of the objects visualizations, the body, and so forward. Yes, and like dreamless sleep, but still fundamentally different states. And one thing that I've been thinking about also when people are describing the void experience, and you would see them like write like, well, nothingness, emptiness, like just like that, nothing there, nothing to see. But what if like there is something in the void with us, but we don't have a translation for it to see it?
Right, right. And that's a very good point. You know, you're in this sense of vastness, and so
Well,
in my way of thinking, and I've talked about this on occasion, to me, the void represents unexpressed potential.
uh-huh.
So
Okay.
think of mental energy as just nothing but potential.
Uh-huh.
But but if it's unexpressed, then it's just has some sort of native state. But a mental energy, let's say I became lucid, and when I go around that corner, I want to meet the most attractive woman I could ever meet, and I go around the corner, and here's this woman who's just absolutely gorgeous. That is expressed mental energy. That's formed potential. That's whatever, because around the corner potentially could be virtually anything. But
Mm,
sometimes I think that's what we're seeing there in the void state is unexpressed mental energy. Just
energy.
there it is. Whereas a dream is expressed mental energy.
That's
And then the visuals come to an end, and it goes back to its kind of resting state, and all. That's
that's
kind of what I think. Kind of what
yeah.
I think is going on, but I really haven't experimented
Mm.
that much.
Very, thank you for sharing that. Unexpressed mental energy. That's interesting because when I was thinking about this, like what is in the void, and I thought maybe it's like pre-form information or like pre-form reality. It's everything before it comes something. But on the other hand, this unexpressed mental energy, in the sense, it is a little bit overlapping to this idea because also our mental energy, once it becomes used and accustomed to something, then we create with it our reality. Like you said, like if you have a lot of fears, you're living a certain way, and you probably have a lot of unexpressed mental energy because you're too afraid to like express it, or you're living in a bit of avoidance. Once it becomes expressed, we are bringing more information of ourselves in the reality. So also on this note, it can be something like this. And then also when people say, well, there's nothing to see, the world or the dream disappeared, then I sometimes think like, well, no, maybe the observer disappeared. And yes, but really, really interesting um, points on this. Okay, we can move, I think, to the final theme, a bit overlapping to this dreams, information, but also time and the sense of time in dreams. So it does seem that in the dreams, at least in my experience, of course, this also differentiates between people. Time flows differently in dreams. And sometimes a lucid dream can feel like it has lasted for a very long time. Like I once clocked a lucid dream, 20 minutes of lucid dreaming in wake life turned into 1 week of a lucid dream in the lucid dream with 7 days and 7 nights. So have you thought or like explored the nature of time in dreams?
Right. It's a interesting area because connected with time is also space, and
Mm,
these two topics kind of go together. Um, I think what lucid dreaming helped me understand was that time has a psychological nature.
mhm,
So we can all look at a clock and watch the seconds go away, 1, 2, 3, and all that. So oftentimes in waking reality, we see time as very linear. But I remember one time when I was a teenager, um, some friends and I were out in a convertible MG, and I was sitting on the back hump, and my friend went off the road into the ditch. We hit a bump, and I went flying through the air. So this happened
mhm.
in physical reality. When I was flying through the air, time suddenly slowed down. It was like every microsecond I could, oh, I'm flying through the air. Oh, there's a barbed wire fence over there. Oh, I wonder if I'm going to hit the barbed wire fence. Oh, I think I'm going to hit the barbed wire fence. And it was like I'm I'm moving through the air. It's all happening in 1 or 2 seconds of linear time, but the psychological time was slowed down considerably. And so what I'm trying to get across here is that we rely on linear time,
Mm.
but oftentimes psychological time is there in the background and suddenly it comes forward. So the beautiful thing in a lucid dream is sometimes we can move into psychological time where suddenly time is different. One way I mentioned this in my first book, I got a report from a young guy who was a lucid dreamer, and his alarm clock rang at 7 in the morning for him to get up and go to school, but he pushed the button that would snooze it, so it would allow him to sleep for 7 or 8 more minutes. He said in that next 7 or 8 minutes, he became lucidly aware in a dream. And oh my God, the dream. And he said, it took pages to write out all the stuff that happened. And then what happens? The alarm rings, and now he wakes up. And he thought, there's no way that all of that activity could have happened in 7 minutes. There's just no way. So that's where we start to see psychological time kind of take over. But Ruth, are you saying that you had an experience of being living for 7 days within a lucid dream?
I've had this actually 2 times. This one was that I did intentionally clock it. It was about 1 year ago. So like for me, it seems that the lucid dreams are the most intense in the early morning hours. So, go to sleep early-ish, then wake up maybe 6, 7, and then or earlier than that. And then if I would fall asleep again, I could lucid dream for hours. But sometimes it kind of turns into a lucid dreaming nap, which was the case in this instance, that I just went back to the dream for 20 minutes and I was wondering about time in the dream and like how that could go. So I started counting the days and the nights in the lucid dream and I was like 7 days, 7 nights. and then the
Wow.
alarm went off, and it was 20 minutes. But also, I do feel that the time kept on expanding more in the lucid dream because I was specifically focusing on it, that on the nature of time in the dream. It was
Right.
kind of changing it that I don't, in most cases, when I'm lucid dreaming, I'm not really putting an intention on time. I'm more interested in awareness and exploring
Right.
reality and or these things that I want to know. But on this instance, I was interested in time. And this actually happened a second time also, the same. I don't know, that was not 20 minutes. That was more like 3 hours in waking life. Again, the morning hours. And it turned into a very, very long lucid dream. And this was an interesting experience because in the dream, I usually like don't tell the dream figures that this is a dream because I've noticed they get upset by it.
Right.
But on this instance, there was a dream figure in the dream, and the dream turned into a place. I think it was like Colombia or something like this. Anyway, South America. I've never been there, but I think it was there. I have a mental image of that place. And there was a bus driver there in the lucid dream. And in the lucid dream, for some instance, I had a broken leg or something like this, but I knew it was a lucid dream, so it's fine. And the bus driver is just like going around me, going around me, going around me, trying to help me. And I'm getting very irritated at the bus driver. And then I'm like,
Right.
okay, now I'm going to tell him it's a dream. So he's going to get upset and then he's going to leave. So I was like, you don't really need to help me because this is a dream. So I don't actually have a body. So the leg is not actually broken. This is a dream. You're in the dream. You're in my dream. And then the character is like, he just lights up. Like, I know this is a dream. Do you know this is a dream as well? And he gets so excited. And then I realize that this may be another person who's having a lucid dream. I kind of get that
Oh,
feeling.
interesting.
And then I'm like, okay. And then the dream carries on. So with the bus driver, we go to his family house and his whole family is there. And then I realized that it's not really my dream anymore because this person has this family and it's kind of like maybe I'm now in his dream and not in my dream anymore. Like, okay. And then I stay in that house for maybe 1 week, 2 weeks, and I start having these thoughts like, I wonder how much I should like spend time with these dream characters, like taking into account that I have my own life and I'm going to wake up soon. And like, yeah, this is getting like a little bit strange, but okay, back to our earlier point that we need to be open to strange experiences. And the last point to that was that the experience ended when I was looking at the same dream character, and we were having a conversation with the bus driver and he just vanished. And then I was okay, he woke up now.
It's interesting. I recall a friend of mine telling me
Oh.
about a lucid dream experience he had where he found himself on another planet, and and all the figures called him by a certain name. And on that planet, he had a wife and a few kids, and and every night went by, years went by, but he kept telling the people that actually his name is blah blah blah. He lives on Earth and he's in a lucid dream. But the lucid dream just kept going on, and it went on for years, and it kept
Years.
going on for years until finally he became an old man, and he realized that he was getting ready to pass. And when he passed away on that planet, then he woke up in his bed back home, and the lucid dream came to an end. But he said it was truly a strange um, extension of time because it went on for years, and all. And he realized he was dreaming. Everyone called him by a different name. He insisted what his real name was in this waking reality. So again, time is a very strange thing, and that's why I also brought up space because um, there's a lot of ways of relating to space in a lucid dream.
Mm,
Now, a lot of people, like when I first became a lucid dreamer, I didn't know how to fly to the top of a tree. So, how did I fly to the top of a tree? I swam through the air to get to the top.
mm,
But finally, it occurred to me, why am I using physical effort in a lucid dream? That what I should do is use mental effort to fly. And so I created some techniques like if I saw someplace really far away, I would concentrate on that far away spot, just one
mm,
specific part of it. I would imagine myself there, and then I would just use my intent. And in a second, I would go 3 miles in a lucid dream. But then I began to think, what is space in a lucid dream?
mm,
And so I remember reading a lucid dreamer who was actually the first one to signal in a sleep laboratory that he was lucidly aware, a gentleman in Scotland. But he said when it came to space, he had space come to him. So that
mm,
thing 3 miles away, why should he bother to fly to it? He just pulled it to him, and there it was. So again, you begin to see that space is quite malleable in a lucid dream. If you believe that, oh, somehow I got to fly there or walk there or whatever,
mm,
you're still physically relating to it. But if you start to see it as a mental construct, as an idea, then you can bring it towards you and begin to play with it. And so that's one thing that I've realized too, that along with playing around with time, you can also play with space in lucid dreams and see where it takes you. But
mm,
the one thing that is strange, though, when it comes to time, is sometimes getting information that no one could know outside of time and
mm,
get it, and then wake up with it, and then later watch it come to pass. Um, so that's like what most people would call getting precognitive information,
mhm.
getting information outside of time. And it's interesting. There was recently a scientific study on this that had some what I thought were extremely positive results. So it's interesting that this is actually even being explored by the scientific community.
Yes, that is very interesting. I have also had these precognitive dreams with information given in a certain timeline, even a certain month, a certain date that something is going to happen, and then just watch it happening. And it's not because sometimes in the science say that, well, because you have had this information, then you start adjusting your life a certain way that the thing will then happen, and so you can believe it, but it's not valid when the event is chained or joined with other people, other characters, other events, and other situations that you have no control over, that you just get this information on. So that's definitely very interesting. Also, these experiences of time expansion in the dreams, how we relate to times in dreams, if we switch to psychological time, and what you said about your friend experiencing years in a dream. So, did you say that he eventually died in the dream? Like, or
He uh, he eventually died as that figure on another planet who had a wife and kids and everything. And his dying in that realm s- uh, had him wake up in his bed in this realm.
I'm
And
actually interested. Was he like, was he an experienced lucid dreamer, or did he just start his practice and end up with this?
no, no, he was he's very experienced lucid dreamer. So he he wasn't too freaked out by it, but he was kind of blown away that it went on for years, and I think he said even decades, that it went on for decades. So yeah, that's another one of those kind of strange thing that's a little bit hard to imagine. It's interesting. Some of the young people that I interact with, oftentimes what they'll kind of treat a lucid dream as a video,
Mm,
and oh, they're in a lucid dream, and oh, they don't like what's happened. They throw out their hand and say stop, and then
Mm,
they rewind it back to an earlier spot, allow it to start up again, and now they make a different choice at that moment. And so it's like they're video editing within their own lucid dream. I find that kind of interesting. Also, I remember talking to a young guy who told me that when he was a teenager, in a lucid dream, he announced, "Show me my happiest dream ever." And
mm,
all of a sudden, he popped back to when he was like an 8-year-old kid, and this dream was playing in front of him, and he remembered it. Oh yeah, that was a great dream that I had when I was 8 years old, and oh my God, this is so cool to see it all again. Displayed in our memory. So that's the interesting thing with it is there's time, there's our memory, and then sometimes our memory even extends beyond what the waking self, the waking Ruth, or the waking Robert
mm,
would presume as part of their time. Um, so again, what I think lucid dreaming is showing us is we focus on the waking self and the ego.
mhm,
That's what we focus on, and we're making a living and dealing with life and taking care of our daily needs. But what lucid dreaming begins to show us is that we have an inner awareness, we have an inner self that that actually is engaged and trying to educate and assist us. And then there's also other aspects where it's even more amazing, more incredible. And that's why I think lucid dreaming needs to be explored more deeply so people can begin to see there's more going on here than just being aware within the dream. There's it's really a exploration of the nature of self, the nature
mhm.
of creating experience within the dream state. There's just so many facets to it. It's really fascinating.
Exactly. And now is the time to do it also because the system is changing rapidly in the world and new systems are being born and so forward. So, like related to the ego driven self, what you mentioned, that there's a lot of people who are very focused on the ego driven self in the sense of the job title, the finances, the ownership. Is there even ownership of things when we start to explore reality? Well, that's a different question. But in any case, I do feel also that a lot of people have a sensation that with this focus, there is something inherently missing. Like, so there is a space that it seems that something is still missing. And indeed it is, because as we have gone through this conversation, we're like opening some small doors to explore the architecture of the entire self, of which the ego driven self is such a small part. So I think that lucid dreaming is a wonderful opportunity to explore the wider awareness and also feel a sense of whole and belonging into this wider awareness.
Right.
Well, I will ask the final question now to wrap this up. So, what is beyond the lucid dream?
Yeah, yeah. What's beyond lucid dreaming? So
Yes.
that's really a wonderful question because lucid dreaming shows us how we create our personal experience by working with the unconscious mind or our inner awareness. And so, going beyond lucid dreaming is beginning to let go of that. And I think what it really starts to show us is that all of us are part of an interconnected oneness.
Mm,
That even though we seem separate and distinct and apart from others, from the natural environment and all, in another way, at deeper levels, we have a connection. There's a oneness that we're connected to. We were talking a moment ago about time, and so on LinkedIn, I think about 6 months ago, um, I made a note that in a regular dream, a dream figure told me that oil prices were going to go to $140 a barrel.
mm,
And so 6 months ago, everything's moving along. Oil's $70 a barrel or whatever, and now we can see that in various parts of the world, oil has gone beyond $140, at least for a time and all. And so again, that's one of those things that you can't say that I influenced international events to make that happen, but that this kind of knowing is out there. It's
Mm.
out there, and that we can connect to. And so that's what I think is kind of beyond lucid dreaming, is kind of a little bit of what I would call lucid waking, where we begin to wake up in the physical world to the fact that we're more than just egos and conscious selves, that there's more here, more going on. Um, I've shared this story with others, how one time I was meditating during the day. I was sitting there meditating and I was getting down really deep. And all of a sudden, I could feel my inner awareness. And just like a lucid dream, but I was awake. And so I reach out to my lucid dream, like I ask anyone to interact with a dream figure. I say, "Hey, lucid dream, our dream self, inner awareness, what do you have to say to me?" And and I heard, as clearly as you and I talking, I heard, "We want you to send $10,000 to your friend Paul back in your hometown." And I thought, "What?" And I immediately came out of that meditation. And I thought, "Boy, that was weird. That was really strange. What a odd meditation." So the next day, around the same time, I'm meditating in the same chair in the living room, and I get down deep, and now I feel my inner awareness and also the energy of my old friend Paul's mother, who's passed away.
Mm.
And I reach out and say, "So inner self, what do you have to say to me?" And it says, "We want you to send $10,000 to your friend Paul back in your hometown." And so my hometown is 8 hours away. And I think, "Oh my goodness, this has happened twice." And so when I come out of the meditation, I tell my wife, I say, "Look, if I ever had the same dream twice in a row, I would do whatever I thought it was trying to tell me, because I would know that on an inner level, something needed attention."
Mm.
I said, "This has happened twice in waking meditation. And so I think this is really important, but I don't know how to respond." And she says, "Oh, let's write Paul a letter and we'll include a check. Paul, here's a check for $1,000. We're your friends. If you ever need help, we're here to help you." So we sent that off to him. And 4 days later, I assume he got the mail because the phone rings and it's my friend Paul. And at first I couldn't understand him because he was so emotional. But he told me that a week earlier, he had gone to his mom's gravesite and yelled at it that if someone didn't help him, he was going to kill himself. And I said, "Paul, what's going on?" He said that 3 months earlier, his dad slipped in the bathroom and broke his hip.
Mm.
And so he's been recovering in a nursing home, in a rest
Mm.
home. But he could tell that they were never going to teach his dad to walk again. And so his dad would end up dying in this rest home, in this nursing home. And I said, "Okay, so why do you need $10,000? He said, "I need $10,000 turn to create a disabled bathroom in my home so my dad can come and live with me." And I said, "Paul, you really want to do this?" And he goes, "Yeah, the state that we live in will provide 40 hours of nursing care a week. And, I'll be able to continue my job. And in the evening, I'll take care of my dad." And I go, "Okay." And we sent him the money. He built the place. His dad came and lived with him for 6.5 years before he passed away. So again, what I'm trying to get across here is that this occurred in the waking state. This was kind of like moment of lucid waking, where you get information. It's outside of your own knowing. It doesn't make sense, but when you contact the people that it connects to, then suddenly it's understandable and makes sense. So when we
Mm.
go beyond lucid dreaming, it's kind of like lucid waking, where we begin to wake up and realize that there's more going on here than just this day-to-day experience, that we're actually learning, we're being educated, we're growing in ways, and we're developing abilities that are outside of the normal course of abilities that we normally think of. So that's what I think is beyond lucid dreaming.
Wonderful, beautiful. Thank you for that um, story and also your thoughts. And yes, beyond the lucid dreaming, is lucid awakening. I like that. And this lucid waking, it includes, I suppose, the guide there, the creator, who is helping us in the dreams. And I think the intention is to the connectiveness to be one. Like that's how it seems that it's giving information in order to connect people. So that's
Right, right.
mm,
And also, I think when you realize that we exist as a oneness, then your relationship to things just begins to change. Um,
yes.
it, it's not about you necessarily; it's about the whole. But
Mm,
you're part of the whole, so it's not like you give up and don't develop and grow anymore, don't express yourself, but you realize that part of expressing yourself is in to aid the oneness, to aid the totality. So
sure, sure. And not only the oneness of people, but also the oneness of the nature and this planet and our existence, because we are all linked to each other. And basically, just like you said, that it doesn't mean that we stop developing ourselves, but I think it does mean that we have much more intention in the way we do develop ourselves, and very importantly, learn to think for ourselves and learn to say no to things that we notice that will harm some part of that oneness. Because if we are harming some part of the oneness, we're also harming ourselves. So that would be the part of the awakening lucid.
right, right.
Right. Okay, so thank you so much for this conversation. I really appreciate your time. It was very interesting. I still have a lot of questions, but we leave some for later also. And I really appreciate you being here. So, do you have any final thoughts you want to say?
Lucid dreaming is such an incredible experience, and I think everybody can learn to be an amateur in this area.
Mm,
Some people go much, much deeper and all, just like in any service. So whoever out there is giving it a go, I just want to encourage you to understand that it's a long journey, but it's definitely a journey worth taking. So thank you so much, Ruth, for your time.
thank you.